Focus on the screen. I cannot wait to bring up Mr. Dave Lee.
Hey, safe to say I'm the biggest, the largest. Been stepping up shit since my mama stayed in them apartments. Regardless, my daddy told me keep the heat even when I'm in foreigns. I'm heartless, cause these niggas is hating on me just because I'm the biggest.
Not to make a bunch of money, it's definitely not to become a fucking influencer, that shit. All I really care about is you guys getting proper, correct advice on your TRT and live a good, happy, healthy life.
All right, thank you. Whoa, okay. So thank you so much, Ali, for such a generous and kind introduction. I am absolutely thrilled to be here today. This is my third time speaking at the Silverback Summit. The last 3 years, I did a part 1, 2, and 3 of Your Brain on Testosterone and the War on Masculinity. I like things in threes, so part 4 didn't feel quite right. So I just called it testosterone. You're going to hear a lot about testosterone over the next couple of days, so I thought this would be fitting. So, I got some feedback last year from the talk that I gave, which was that my slides were a bit too text-heavy. So Ali said, Dave, please just use important slides for today. And I said, okay. This is my puppy. His name is Loki. He is the best. This has nothing to do with anything else, but I'm giving the keynote so I can do what I like. So, I'm going to start with a story. 2 days before my 25th birthday, I woke up and I fell into my wardrobe. It was like I was 20 beers deep. I was 0 beers deep. And for those who remember spinning around on an office chair when you were a kid, imagine that. I spent 2 days in hospital, and then I spent 3 years in a very dark pit of despair because this vertigo that I experienced was debilitating. I couldn't walk. And when I finally got a diagnosis of what was going on, I was told that it could never recover. Now, I'm going to condense this story down, and I'm going to come back to it at the end because it does have a happy ending, and I don't want to kick things off on a somber note. But one thing that I will say that is incredibly important, and I think will resonate with a lot of people here, is that if it wasn't for testosterone replacement therapy as part of my recovery from this, there is a 0% chance that I would be here today. Now, I didn't run bloods every year in my early 20s. I don't know if I had low testosterone beforehand, but there's this saying which goes something like, a picture says 1,000 words. You tell me. This was me in my early 20s. This is not what peak male androgen levels looks like, I can assure you. So, one of the reasons why I struggled so much during this period in my life is that I had never been through anything objectively challenging before. I hadn't been through a rite of passage. My life had been too easy for too long. And at the point when life dealt me a hand that I struggled with, and I had to overcome adversity, I didn't know how to do it. I tried to check out a bunch of times. That didn't work. And I was brought to this point in my life where I truly didn't know what to do because I didn't know how to persevere. I didn't have the biological foundation to do so, and I didn't have the psychological programming to be able to get through the hand that life had dealt me. And this brings me to my first point, is that testosterone, when you optimize and correct for a deficiency, creates the foundation for leadership traits to occur. It is not leadership juice. It will not give it to you automatically. It will create the foundation for you to be able to persevere and overcome stress. Leadership is the ability to stay cool, calm, and collected in situations where other people would become overwhelmed. This is something that you cannot do as a man biologically without testosterone because testosterone biologically buffers the effects of cortisol and adrenaline in the body and increases dopamine transmission. This is the ultimate biohack. This is the ultimate nootropic. When we look at what is masculinity, this is something that people talk about all the time. What does it mean to be an alpha male? What does masculinity mean? And to me, I think the best definition of masculinity is leadership. I want to get something out of the way. Toxic masculinity does not exist. Some men are just dicks. This is called correlation, and it does not equal causation. If anyone here has done first-year science or first-year statistics at university, you might be familiar with the following. I'd like to give a couple of examples to illustrate this point. The number of people who drown by falling into a pool is directly correlated with the amount of films Nicolas Cage appears in per year. One more. The age of Miss America directly correlates with murders by steam, hot vapor, and hot objects. Correlation does not equal causation. Some men are just dicks. They are not dicks because they are men. While we're on the topic of graphs, I made these graphs. And I am horrifically colorblind, so just bear with me if I get the colors wrong, but I think I got them right. So, on the vertical axis, we have the difficulty of life. And on the horizontal axis, we have age. Now, assuming that your upbringing isn't too traumatic, it should go something like this. It starts pretty cruisy as a toddler, your responsibilities grow as you're an adult, and then as you get older as a man into your 30s and 40s, you are expected by society to have mastered something. Whether it is a skill, whether it is yourself, whether it is leading a family. There is a burden of performance on men, and this is not a bad thing. Life is intense sometimes, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. So, these are the levels of healthy testosterone in men. Starts off basically 0, you don't really make any until you hit puberty, and then you skyrocket in your late teens and early 20s, and then you get a relatively linear decline, assuming that you look after yourself relatively consistently over the course of your life. So if we whack these two together, this is the scenario that we're dealing with. The testosterone is there to buffer and prepare you for the challenges of life. This is a pretty good experience. The problem is that my generation and the generation below me, we didn't really get this peak testosterone spike. A lot of us did not. And it looks more like this in pink. Now, referring to young, less masculine men as pink may not be politically correct, but I don't think this is a very politically correct summit, so I think that's okay. You will notice that the timeline is about the same, but these younger men are peaking at the levels that their fathers and grandfathers are at in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. This is not good. So now if we plot this with the challenges of life, we can see that life's challenges exceed the testosterone level present. This creates challenge. This creates avoidance. This creates learned fear. This creates a situation where men are not primed to be the men that they need to be and that society expects them to be, and this creates stress. These are good times. These are not so good times. There's a little bit of good times, but it's mainly a challenge for these younger men. And so many younger men are dealing with this, and they're going to the doctor, they're going to a psychologist, and they're being told they have clinical depression and anxiety. Of course they fucking do, but it's not a serotonin deficiency. So why is this happening? Humans are unknowingly victims, and we are not adopting a victim mentality about this, but we are unknowingly victims of biological warfare. Sounds dramatic, right? So generational hypogonadism. I came up with this term. If this term catches on, it's mine. I'm also referring to it as type 3 hypogonadism, so you heard that here first. This is a complex which is new. This is not in the literature. This is in the trenches. Practitioners here know exactly what I'm talking about. This condition seems to be affecting men born in the late 80s and onwards, and it's getting exponentially worse. As I said, I like 3s. Plastic, pollution, and pesticides. These are the primary culprits for what are called endocrine disrupting chemicals. These are exogenous hormonal analogs that are entering the body and are having negative estrogenic effects at the receptor that do not confer the beneficial and protective effects of endogenous estrogens. We are making this worse, and this is what I want to talk about today. Alcohol, poor sleep, poor hydration, poor diet, excess body fat. All of these things in isolation, yeah, you can deal with those. The human body is pretty resilient, but when you combine all these things with these, this is where we get a problem. These are the straws that break the camel's back. We are impairing our ability to detoxify these environmental toxins because we are not looking after ourselves properly, and this is a damn shame. So clinically, for the practitioners out there, what this appears in blood work when you're looking at this is we're seeing low free testosterone, but we're seeing normalized levels of luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. The body is essentially regulating to go, yep, this is where I'm supposed to be. And this is not something that we have seen up until now. I think this picture sums it up pretty well. My friend Dr. Rudy Eberwein refers to it as swimming in estrogen soup. I think that sounds quite thick and disgusting. So I like the proverbial pool of estrogen. This is a fantastic metaphor for what is outside this building right now. Hormone optimization is not a bulletproof vest. I wish it was. It would make my job a fuck ton easier, but it is not. It is not a panacea, but it is a damn important tool to be able to regain your biological masculine birthright. We've got victim mentality, we've got entitlement, we've got it all. So, chronic stress. This is a huge problem whether we realize it or not. And chronic stress can be biological, chronic stress can be psychological, chronic stress can be circumstantial. We are looking at things like chronic pain, obesity and insulin resistant, a nutrient-devoid diet, chronic psychological and circumstantial stress, lack of sun exposure and physical movement, untreated, undiagnosed autoimmune conditions, and chronic dysbiosis and gastric distress. A lot of people tick a lot of these boxes, and it is creating further problems and compounding the challenges that we are having to try to stabilize and optimize male hormone levels in a toxic world which is fighting against us. So what we see in blood work, I'm putting a few little notes in here for the practitioners here, but I'm not going to get bogged down. Elevation in prolactin, cortisol, fasting insulin, blood pressure, resting heart rate, DHEA, which is a proxy for elevated adrenal activation, and reverse T3. These are your markers that someone is biologically stressed. These are the objective markers in the blood work that they are stressed. We are seeing a reduction in immune system function, well-being goes to shit, sleep is disturbed, cognitive function goes down, sexual function goes down, libido and testosterone hit the gutter. What this results in is psychological learned fear. People call this anxiety, but you need to be anxious about something. This is fear of everything for no reason, and this leads to a lack of pleasure in activities that once felt good. So many men out there are experiencing this, but are not talking about it because it is normal. Common is not normal. So, another note for the practitioners here. The number one cause of side effects on testosterone replacement therapy is the original unresolved cause of the secondary hypogonadism and the maladaptive coping mechanisms that came with being hypogonadal for a prolonged period. What does this mean? Feeling like shit often leads people to doing things that are shit for them to try to make them feel better in the short term. When we take someone who has their hormone levels suppressed because they are not looking after themselves properly, and we pump them full of testosterone to match that of a healthy man, it doesn't work out very well. The gap between the testosterone levels that they should have and the testosterone levels of the healthy man that they are taking, who they are not, this gap creates side effects. This is the umbrella for what causes the vast majority of issues that you see clinically. And men don't want to do the work, they want to take the pill. So, there's two ways that you solve side effects on TRT. You address the root cause of the poor habits, you increase the injection frequency, and you change the carrier oil. This is how you solve virtually every side effect on TRT. It is this simple. 2 to 3 injections a week and changing the carrier oil to something like MCT or grapeseed oil can make a drastic difference, especially if you combine it with cutting out the bullshit behavior that they have learned to do to cope with their circumstances. This process is a healing process. Healing is uncomfortable. Healing requires change, and change takes time. Here's a little tip for everyone in the room, whether you're a patient or a practitioner. How often should you take your TRT? What's the most optimal TRT frequency? As often as you'll do it for as long as you can. The next point that I would like to make is that lean body fat percentage is paramount and biologically necessitated for optimal health on TRT. Every percent above 15% body fat as a man that you are carrying will contribute to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance disrupts your body's ability to utilize glucose to create energy. It fucks up the engine. When the engine's not working properly, the body becomes stressed. When the body becomes stressed, it increases aromatase expression to try to reduce the inflammation. This is an inflammatory response. Blaming estrogen for the symptoms is like blaming the fire engines for causing the fire. It is not how it works. Now, if someone is not on TRT and is living like this, the body then suppresses hormone production. We get negative feedback at the hypothalamus, and this creates an environment where you would never have optimal androgen levels. It just wouldn't ever biologically happen. So you come in, being the smart individual you are, and you go, okay, my body's pumping the brakes. I don't like this. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pump the accelerator at the same fucking time. That is not going to lead to a smooth ride forward. This is going to lead to stuttering. This is going to lead to solving one problem, but creating 2 more. Now, in these situations, because as a practitioner or as a clinician, you are going to meet many men who are not looking after themselves properly, who do have metabolic syndrome, but they still need your help because testosterone is part of the process for them to heal their sick and inflamed body. And one of the best tools that we have at our disposal is using a trans-scrotal 20% cream. And the reason for this is that when someone has high levels of cortisol, prolactin, and estradiol, this suppresses the production of the enzyme 5-alpha reductase. When we suppress 5-alpha reductase and the production of DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is like super testosterone, the balance between androgens and estrogens goes out of balance. And subjectively experiencing this doesn't often feel good. When we use a cream and we have more exposure to the 5-alpha reductase enzyme in the skin, we're able to bypass this process and create a biological environment which pushes a man's health more into the direction of where it should be. This means that when you take patient populations, such as people who are obese, insulin-resistant, liver disease, alcoholism, post-finasteride syndrome, post-SSRI sexual dysfunction, these guys usually are problematic. These guys get the side effects. When you use the cream, you get significantly less issues in the population of men who are the most prone to side effects. This is a game changer. If you are in the room working with TRT, you need to know how to use the 20% trans-scrotal cream. You're going to hear this a lot during this speech, and you're going to hear this a lot during this event, I'm sure. But just to get it out of the way, practitioners who know how to do TRT properly know that you never have to inhibit aromatase. The next point I want to make is that if you want to treat testosterone, you need to know how to treat the thyroid. All the factors that I mentioned before, the environmental disruption of hormone production, it's messing with the thyroid in the same way it's messing with the testosterone. It's messing with women's thyroids, it's messing with women's production of progesterone, it is messing with these two hormonal systems, and if you want optimal testosterone, you have to have optimal thyroid. If you have subclinical hypothyroidism, your androgen receptors will be downregulated, your estrogen receptors will be upregulated, and it won't feel the way it's supposed to feel. Testosterone builds the boat, thyroid puts the wind in the sails. Now, optimal cardiovascular health. I fucking hate cardio. I've hated cardio my whole life. I didn't do any exercise until I was about 19 years old when I realized I was fat. Now, I hate cardio more than anyone, and I probably do more cardio than anyone because you have to. People come to me and they go, oh, I don't like cardio, and I say, well, you have to do it anyway. That's the end of the discussion. There's not really anything else to it. You find the form of cardio that you hate the least, and you do it more. And eventually, when you actually build a healthy cardiovascular system, it'll start to feel good because you can produce the endorphins that your body's supposed to make. If you get on the treadmill and it feels so horrifically bad and exhausting to the body, that is not a signal that you don't need to do it. It's a signal that you need to do more. If you stretch and you go, oh, I can't touch my toes, so stretching's not for me. No, it means you need to do significantly more. You must do cardio. Cardio is not just a tool to manipulate calories out. You will not lose your gains by doing cardio. You will be fine. Next point. DHT, dihydrotestosterone. This is your body's primary androgenic agent. So anabolic, building tissue, androgenic, masculinizing. This is really important, and this is subjectively what a lot of men are looking for when they go on hormone replacement therapy. Whether they recognize it or not, they are looking to feel more like a man. If you block DHT to keep your pretty haircut, you're not going to get what you're looking for, and you're going to run risks of sabotaging your long-term health. You do not want to suppress the most important androgen in the body to keep your pretty haircut. If you can't deal with losing your hair, see a therapist. I was devastated. I cried when I was at the barber and he shaved my hair off. And then 2 days later, I got over it. If this is the most challenging thing that you've gone through in your life, you should count your lucky stars. It is not worth partial chemical castration. It truly is not. So coming to the close of this speech, I want to talk about the way forward. I want to talk about the mindsets and the practices that men need to adopt in order to reach the goals and be the man who they could be. And the best way to do this, what I believe is one of the ultimate biohacks, and I'm going to share all my favorite biohacks in this talk. If you can make self-development a hobby rather than a chore, if you can enjoy the journey more than you're looking forward to the outcome, you've nailed it. If you can make working on yourself the never-ending quest of your life to be able to be a better man, not just for you, but for the people around you, this is how you get to where you want to be, and this is how you ultimately become who you want to be. And I think there's a very simple way to look at this. In my experience, everyone knows, not everyone, most people know exactly what they're doing that they shouldn't be doing. They probably just think that they can get away with it because they're the exception to the rule. They're not. So there's a very simple process. You make a list. And if you've got a piece of paper in front of you, you can do it now. You write a list on the left of all the things that you're doing that you know that you shouldn't be doing. And then on the right, you make a list of all the things that you're not doing that you know you should be doing. Problem solved. This is not a knowledge issue, this is an application issue. I'm borrowing this concept from Wes Watson, whether people love or hate him. This is a fundamental thing that I see every day. People know exactly how they're getting in their own way. They know exactly how they're self-sabotaging. They just can't be fucked fixing it, but they expect the outcomes as if they did. This is entitlement. Expecting the results of the work that you can't be bothered doing is juvenile, and it's not going to get you where you want to go, and that is your problem. These are the big ones: drugs, alcohol, junk food, and not doing enough exercise. This is what you see every day in TRT clinics for people who are whinging about their side effects. It's not that the protocol's off. It's that they're consuming too many recreational drugs, they're drinking alcohol on the weekends to excess, they're constantly eating junk food, and they're not moving enough. It's this simple for so many people, but they don't recognize how well they have to look after themselves in order to feel the way that they're wanting to feel. You cannot drink to intoxication every weekend and live a long, happy, healthy life. You can't. One of the biggest things that I've noticed in my practice as a health coach is that the thing that often defines how well someone is doing in their 50s and 60s is how much alcohol they consumed in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. You cannot party like an 18-year-old for your entire life and expect it to go well. It's not going to happen. Over time, this will break you down, this will age you quickly, and it will predispose you to the big 4 diseases of aging, which are cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and dementia. Drugs and alcohol borrow the desired feeling from the future. You have to pay it back with interest. This is called a come down. This is called a hangover. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and you are creating debt to yourself, and the interest payment is a bitch. This is a great place to start. If you don't know what to do, if you don't know how to look after yourself properly, just start doing all the things your grandma told you to do. I'm going to send this to my grandma. She's going to be wrapped. Go for a walk every morning and every evening. Get as much sunlight as you can without burning. Eat home-cooked food from organic, minimally processed ingredients. These are the biohacks. The biohacks don't have an affiliate code. They are snake oil. These are the biohacks. This is how you hack your biology. This is what the human body was made to do. If you can learn to cook food that you look forward to more than you enjoy ordering off Uber Eats, you've won. This is the biohack, learning how to cook. If people can't cook, it's a skill issue. It's not a genetic defect. You don't know how to do the things you've never practiced. It's called being a fucking human. Macronutrients are vessels for micronutrients. Macros determine how you look, micros determine how you feel. Eat micronutrient-dense food that are made from ingredients that you prepare yourself. This is called nutrition. So, I can assure you that there are more essential nutrients for the human body that you will find on the label of your multivitamin. Stop spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars per month on supplements to fix the side effects of your shitty diet. This is what so many people are doing who I speak to every single day, and it isn't the shortcut. You don't get away with it, and it doesn't replace healthy, proper fuel for the human body. Go to bed earlier at the same time every night. All the stuff your grandma told you to do that. She worked it out. I want to come back to the story that I started on. Because the story does have a happy ending, but there was definitely a period during that with a lot of tears, a lot of hopelessness. If anyone can imagine being debilitatingly dizzy for years, it's a process that psychologically and physiologically breaks you down. And there were absolutely periods during this where I had well and truly given up. And one of the things that I did is that I blamed my external circumstances. I didn't have someone come to save me. And I felt like I should have. I felt like I deserved that. I didn't have a strong masculine role model to help me through the dark times of my life. And I blamed that. And it didn't get me anywhere. It really didn't. And the only way out of this that I found was to be that man for myself. I had to think, what would he do? Who am I looking for to get me out of this mess I'm in? And I had to embody those traits. I had to teach them for myself,
And now it is a privilege and an honor to be able to do that for others. I went back to university. I studied science. I learned how peptides work. I learned how hormones work. I learned how nerves work and how I had a chance of healing it if I threw everything I possibly could at it and worked my absolute ass off doing rehabilitation all day, every day for months without achieving a single ounce of progress. But I pushed through because I took pride in being the person who didn't back down. I was convinced that I wouldn't make it through, but at my funeral, I wanted people to be like, he went down swinging. But fortunately, I did make it through. I eventually did. Now, what I needed to do this is to tell my own hero's journey story through my actions and through my life. And the most important part of the hero's journey of any good movie or book that you've read is that when the hero is up against the challenge and goes to slay the dragon, he is fighting and faced with insurmountable odds. And when you can go up against that, and when you can come out the other side and get through it, it's a life-defining experience that allows you to lead for others and to be that man for other people who do need that man in their life. Now, I didn't take photos of myself during this period. I don't take photos of myself ever, but I especially didn't take many photos of myself during these 3 years. It wasn't pretty. But I do have one photo. This part makes me a little bit emotional. It's not an estrogen issue. It is healthy for men to experience a full spectrum of emotions. But my mum took this photo. This is when I was doing well. This was a year into TRT, and I completed the Spartan race that I was training for when my brain injury happened. If anyone here has run a Spartan race, it's run in waves. There's hundreds of people who run it. I came last, dead last. I fell over more times than I can count. I'm pretty sure everyone thought I was drunk. But I still got to the finish line. I still got that medal, and I carry that medal with me everywhere I go. This was simultaneously one of the best days of my life and also one of the worst. But I got through it because I persevered and I didn't give up and I didn't quit. And if it wasn't for the testosterone that I started taking a year prior, there is no way in hell that I would have had the psychological courage or the biological resilience to be able to recover from something that every single medical professional that I saw told me couldn't be done. And this leads me to the final point that I'd like to make. Self-love is not unconditional. It's not. That voice that keeps you up at night because you're not living up to your potential because you feel guilty, self-love is not unconditional. It must be earned. Life gives you participation medals, but that voice inside your head, he knows exactly who you are when no one's around. He knows exactly when you do and don't keep the word to yourself that you say you'll do. And it is so important to recognize that self-love is something that you must work to earn. The way that I got through this is that I learned to regulate my thoughts and emotions. I stopped doing what I felt like doing, and I started to do what I needed to do, especially when I didn't want to do it. And I think that this is a hallmark of maturity, and I think this is a requirement for life. The person who sets the alarm at 5 a.m. is not the same person that hears the alarm go off at 5 in the morning. It's whether you can keep your word to yourself and do what you need to do, not react emotionally, that will define the trajectory of where you end up in life. I am extremely passionate about mindfulness meditation as an interventional tool to improve mental health. Headspace Basics program. Download it on your phone. 1 session a day, 10 minutes. You can skip one day if something comes up, but if you skip 2 days in a row, you go back to the start and you start again. Took me a year. Mindfulness needs to be done regularly. It is a frequency thing, not a volume thing. You have to disrupt the default mode network to reprogram the way that your mind works. And in clinical interventional studies, we see it physically change the architecture of the brain. If every single person in this room makes the commitment to me right now that they will do it, 90% of people won't complete it because it is uncomfortably boring. But the 10% who do, they'll say it changed their life. The lack of emotional regulation that people have as a result of not being able to develop the skill of mindfulness is what is responsible for a huge amount of mental health problems that people are experiencing, either directly or indirectly. So we're going to do something a bit different now to close. I want everyone to put everything down that you've got in front of you, put your phone on the table, and just for a few minutes, I want you to all close your eyes. And in your own time, I want you to take 5 slow, deep breaths. Breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. And when you get to the 5th breath, as you breathe out, I want you to picture in your mind's eye, I want you to visualize someone, something, or somewhere that you are grateful for. And I want you to feel that gratitude. I want you to give yourself the permission and the vulnerability to smile. No one watching but me. And once you finish this, I want you to take one final big, deep breath through the nose and out through the mouth. And in your own time, you can open your eyes. And I want you to reflect on 2 things. 1, do you feel better now for being grateful than you felt before? And 2, do you feel the energy in the room change? And I want to leave you to contemplate that as you go through the rest of the day. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dave Lee, and I will see you next time.